Aliens is one of the most iconic movie franchises in existence, yet their video game lineup wasn't really all that great. In fact, their most famous depiction prior to 2013 was the Aliens vs Predator games. And even then, most would argue that the game from 1999 was better than Rebellion's attempt in 2010. So when esteemed developer Gearbox offered a canonic sequel to James Cameron's Aliens, it's obvious that fans were stoked. If you were to watch the E3 announcement or any of the old trailers of Aliens Colonial Marines, you'd get the impression that it's going to be a tense action game that is fairly authentic to the feel of the film series. While I'm not convinced it was quite going for the survivor horror feel that would later come in Aliens Isolation, I do think that the advertisements were at least implying a gritty FPS that would follow Colonial Marines as they discovered the results of the Aliens film, followed by a brutal struggle for survival against the Xenomorphs. However, what we got is more akin to a toned-down Call of Duty game. When it comes to visuals, Aliens Colonial Marines is fairly ugly by modern standards, but about average for the 7th generation. While its 7th generation faces and blocky textures are wanting, the overall themes are the most accurate we had seen of the Aliens universe to this point. Guns are authentic in visuals and sounds, and world environments could easily be found in any point of the movies, at least when looked at from a distance. It is early mid 7th gen graphics at best, which is quite sad considering that it came out the same year as the 8th generation of consoles. Music is also pretty forgettable, but the voice work is okay. Atmospheric lighting is pretty good, but when you consider that the game looks better when you see less of it, it isn't exactly encouraging. You can even turn on a scanline filter, which makes it even harder to see and near impossible when wielding the smart gun. If you were to watch the Angry Joe review of Aliens Colonial Marines, you'll get the idea that Joe really likes to immerse himself into the games that he plays. I think I approached the game in a similar manner, treating it as more of a Colonial Marine sim, and unfortunately this is where this game falls tragically short. You may have seen the videos showcasing how bad the AI for the Xenomorphs is.
That's my shit, that's my way. Do it like that and I repeat it. Don't be scared, I ain't afraid. Just like that, come my way. That's my shit, that's my way. Do it like that and I repeat it. Don't be scared, I ain't afraid. Just like that, come my way. Yeah, I said do that, baby, all night long.
I'm glad to say that these have largely been fixed in the years since. However, it isn't all that much better, and the aliens still have problems on the easiest difficulty. I played most of the game on Hardened for my playthrough, and found it fairly challenging, but manageable, at least until the Power Loader fight, which is where your allies' poor AI rears its ugly head the most. Weapons and their customization are cool, but seem a little weak to me. Even on the easiest difficulty, you can expend half a magazine to down a single alien. While the Marines could have stepped down to a weaker munition due to the concerns described in the Aliens movie, it's hard to believe that you're firing a 10mm round. It seems that damage drop-off starts at exceptionally short ranges, but even at close quarters, a pistol round that can be used against bears requires a surprising number of rounds to fell a wild xenomorph, even in a rifle variation. This means that you burn through ammo faster than the game will supply it, at least until you get near the end. This kills any chance of using this game as a sim, since you're forced to constantly switch out weapons or use more reliable movie guns on harder difficulties. To remind you that this is a sequel of Aliens, this game will have you play with iconic movie weapons and through movie locations from the spaceship Solargo and then the Exomoon LV-426. Other than the member berries, the main story does a piss poor job of explaining how key features from Aliens managed to return to LV-426, or its orbit in the 17 weeks since the events of Aliens. If you were to ignore this problem, the story does pose some interesting questions about the Weyland-Yutani Corporation that more invested fans might care about, but I think that the average player would be more interested in the Colonial Marines' fight against the Xenomorphs, and this is where the game fails to deliver. The Xenomorphs are forced to share the spotlight as antagonists, and woefully underperform when they're finally put center stage. Aliens Colonial Marines continues to suffer with accessibility. While it does have subtitles, there is no way to change the language in-game. Difficulty options are also bad. While lower difficulties do make it easier, this only seems to be due to a slight change to the AI rather than the damage you receive. Death can come quickly on any difficulty, but I think it will likely be manageable for the majority of players on lower difficulties. It doesn't perform all that much better in convenient either. Aliens Colonial Marines is available on the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and available digitally on Steam. While it should run well on most systems, it is one of the worst setting menus I've seen. Instead of having labeled graphics options, they chose to have undescriptive sliders. While I failed to find any bugs, remember that the AI competence changes as you increase the difficulty. Unfortunately, this means that you might see some strange behavior on lower difficulties. While the gameplay is far from terrible, it only rises to the level of mid at best. Gunplay is okay at short ranges, but damage drops off quickly and explosions don't seem to perform particularly well. The story doesn't add much to the franchise, and I think it fails at attracting new fans. While the multiplayer does look pretty fun, unfortunately it's dead. I think that Aliens Colonial Marines was likely sidelined for the production of Borderlands 2. Unfortunately, it deserves an avoid. While I think that Duke Nukem Forever was in a very similar boat, I feel that Aliens failed fan expectations a little bit more than Duke did. Its failure to deliver as a sequel to one of the most famous films of all time is a huge misstep, and gunplay fails to salvage it as much as it did in Duke Nukem Forever, earning it a lower score. If you want to see my thoughts on Duke Nukem Forever, then you can click the video on the screen. Just note that there are spoilers in that review. Either way, I'll see you on the next one.